Well, good morning, good people. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business here and let's wake up the football gods here on this Taco Tuesday. And I hope all your taco dreams come true. You know, I'm sitting here listening to my morning intro. You know, I get people that just sometimes say the dumbest things. Somebody actually said that my intro sounds like an intro to a 80s PBS show. 80s PBS? Seriously? You know, people want to just find some reason to try and diss you and make you feel bad. Keyboard warriors. It's so easy to be behind a keyboard and just say some of the craziest, nastiest things out there. And I'm not saying that the PBS thing is the worst thing I've heard, because believe me, I've seen a whole lot worse. But last night on my live stream, I had Law Nation. Shout out to Law Nation, who is over 100,000 subscriber, a man who truly is nothing but the best and has put in the work. Great conversation and things. I just finally got fed up with the dumbass comments from some of the people, because, you know, this channel is a lot different than most. I'm old. I will be 58 years old come October. 58. Okay. Now, some of you will look and say you're only 58, you know, because of course you're a keyboard warrior. Some people say you're 58. Yeah, I'm up there. And a lot of the people who are fans in here are older people, older generational people. And we're not into the whole grab ass bullshit that a lot of the younger people here are on other channels. And we actually, you know, I have no problem with Eagle fans. I've got tons of Eagle fans that are actually friends. Same thing with Washington and Giant fans and things like that. But have a conversation. If your whole thing is just spamming trade Dak sucks, trade Dak sucks, Mark Holmes is an idiot, you're not actually contributing anything to the conversations. And you're wasting everybody's time. Now, maybe your life is just not that important, you know, and you feel important when you can try and cause conflict with others, but that's not what we're here about. And so we're going to try and moderate back on some of that stuff a little bit. You know, there's nothing wrong with, you know, good old banter and stuff, the stuff me and Philly 500, and I can respect Philly 500 because when they win or lose, he's always going to be there. He mans up. He's not a cockroach that's only there for good times to just try and make you feel bad. He takes his lumps. And so we're going to move on from that situation there this morning and continue to go. We have some news on Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott got some good news yesterday. He will not be going to court on the dog biting incident that he had. It was set to go to trial. They have settled out of court, undisclosed amount. We have no idea how much money it's going to end up being for that. But needless to say, he did not want to take it to court. This thing's done. It's over with. Which brings me also to the Michael Irvin situation. I'll have more on that later on today. But Michael Irvin, you wonder if it would be advantageous for Marriott to maybe settle out of court without admitting guilt or something like that and just moving on all parties above. But we'll see about that, because I still believe that I think Michael Irvin actually has a good case in there. And again, there's not much going on as we sit 58 days, 11 hours, 44 minutes away from kickoff of the 2023 season. Our defense, one of the things I got so excited, I'm excited, okay? Literally, you've seen the clip of me at the draft, and we had a ball, my man, Game Time Brian. We're working on going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in a couple of weeks to see DeMarcus Ware and Chuck Howley, two more Dallas Cowboys making it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Are the Eagles, do I need to get any Eagles paraphernalia? Are there any more Eagles going in the Pro Football Hall? Oh, there's not. Okay, gotcha. One of the things I still am surprised about, and I honestly feel like the Dallas Cowboys are doing things differently than they have before. I think Dan Quinn taught them a lot. The Cowboys and Jerry Jones, the offense has always been their little pet toy. You know, they like to tinker with the offense and things like that. You know, they always like to get the players that are the sizzle more than the substance, okay? The wide receivers, the running backs and stuff, and then kind of, not really worry about the offensive line so much. It's not sexy. It doesn't sell a lot of jerseys and things. Defensive line has been so ignored for so long. They've paid more attention really to kickers. I'll be honest with you. I have been that guy that's forever saying, it's the defensive line, stupid. Get players up front. They're not sexy. You're not going to sell a lot of jerseys, although I think I'm going to get me a Mozzie Smith jersey. And I was coining the phrase because I've actually mentioned to my wife that we've been so busy working down in Waynesboro and things, she hasn't had a chance. But I want to have her make a shirt that's called a half ton of fun. When you think about Quentin Bohannon, when you think about Val Gallimore, when you think about Mozzie Smith, when you think about Hankins, we're talking about 3 Bills plus guys on the defensive line. And I will say, I believe that the Cowboys have probably potentially the best defensive line that we've had since probably 2007 and potentially since the 90s defense. Because, see, what you have to understand is we all focus in on Emmitt Smith and his yards and Troy Aikman and his accuracy and the playmaker making those plays down the field. But you forget about what that defense did of taking the ball away, of shutting people down and giving more opportunities to the offense. And as much as people want to look and say Dak Prescott sucks or Tony Romo sucks and all that, that's the area that the Cowboys have had the biggest problems. Let's be clear here. Stopping the run, especially in the playoffs, and not being able to run the football has been the problem. When you give up 275 yards on the ground to a team like the Rams in the playoffs, you're not going to win. You're just not. And we all know that the Cowboys got a lot of sacks and stuff last year. When Hankins played, they were good at stopping the run. Once Hankins got hurt, we're a little bit soft in the middle. We weren't able to do the same things. And that's where having Mozzie Smith as part of that rotation, a young guy, a 337-pound guy, not sloppy fat, but a guy who's in there to do battle. The thing I wish the Cowboys, I still don't understand, and I hope that they regret John Ridgeway being let go, being put on waiver. I still, to this day, don't understand that one. You look at the numbers and what John Ridgeway did, he was better than Jordan Davis was last year. Call me crazy, but that should be one of the biggest regrets. Be that as it may, we've got Mozzie Smith. We'll see how he is. If he plays to the level of what we've gotten accustomed to with Dallas Cowboys first rounders, we're going to be in great shape. Because, see, most people don't seem to understand. Again, like I said, the big guys don't get love. You don't get a whole lot of numbers. Now, the Eagles are kind of going overboard on their perception of Jordan Davis, because they're basically saying that everybody on their team on defense flew because of Jordan Davis and his 13 tackles, I think it was, or was it 9? I'm not going to go in there and say that he is the sole reason why Hassan Reddick had 13 sacks or whatever. But the theory is there because, for me, you always get the biggest bang for the buck. Because here's the thing. We've seen having Diggs as a great cornerback is great. But the problem is if you don't have a great one on the other side, they're just going to go somewhere else. That's why we went out and got Stephon Gilmore. Now you got 2 great corners out there. Okay, so now it's a little harder. But if you've got a great guy in the middle, if you got a guy who can push the pocket, for example, Tom Brady If you look at every Super Bowl he lost, it were teams that could push the pocket in the middle. It doesn't like people in his face. You can't see the field as clearly because you've got a guy who's like an eclipse. And he gets that big paw up. Now I've got to try and throw around him. And I can't step up, which means those defensive ends are more effective. And if he's really good, you have to double team him. Well, guess what? There's 11 guys on offense. There's 11 guys on defense. And if I'm taking 2, that means somebody out here is free. And generally speaking, that's your linebackers. One of the biggest things I learned in college football was it's not about getting the glory playing nose guard. Your job is to just tie up the offensive line so that way the linebackers get the tackles. They get the glory. And if he does his job right, the linebackers can play downhill because they're not shedding the block of a guard that's coming up in there. They can see, they can scrape, they can roam, they can come upfield with force. And because that guy can stop the run up the middle, it makes teams more one-dimensional. And because that guy pushes the pocket, it makes the defensive ends more effective. Because that guy can do that, that means there's less time for the quarterback to throw. And those things lead to more turnovers. And this is where I looked at the Cowboys who have not cared about defensive linemen. And as we were talking about last night, what the Cowboys look at, they've always loved edge rushers. And they look at edge rushers and say, well, you know, like a Tyrone Crawford, well, he can play tackle and he can play edge. He's a tweener. You need a tackle. You need a big body who is a tackle, not a guy who can be a little light in the ass, you know, about 270, 280. You need a 300-pound guy who's ready to do war. And they looked at tackle versus nose tackle and said, well, tackle's a tackle. And a nose tackle is not like anybody else. A nose tackle gets hit from every single direction. And it takes a special kind of person to be able to take that kind of abuse without getting the glory. To literally have the football right in front of your face and never get to touch it. And the Cowboys finally have recognized that that's what they needed. And they've got that guy. And I think you will see a sea change on this team in stopping the run. And I'm happy about that. So we still are 2 weeks and a day away from training camp opening up. There's still some big-name players. Dalvin Cook is still out there. We still know that DeAndre Hopkins is out there. We still know that Barkley has yet to get his deal done, or Josh Jacobs, or Tony Pollard. And I don't think Tony Pollard's getting a deal. I see him playing on the franchise tag. Here's an interesting take as to why these guys may not be signed yet. Let's go to Rich Eisen.
Jeff, what do you got for me there?
First of all, I think it's important. I keep having all these, Dolphins fans freaking out in my Twitter timeline about why doesn't Dalvin just sign? We should just move on from him. Like, it's July 10th. Like, GMs aren't even around. Like, they're on vacation. This is not a time of year when players sign. I remember talking to a GM actually this past year about a player that he had signed last year, and he had a quarterback who was coming to him constantly to try to press him to sign a wide receiver. And the GM finally had to tell him, let me do my job. If I sign him right now, it's going to cost us $15 million. If we wait 3 weeks, I can sign him for about 6. So, I think that sort of applies to what we're going through right now with Dalvin Cook. Dalvin wants to see what his market is. The Dolphins, for instance, aren't going to want to, just press and sign him just at a time when it doesn't matter. So I think that we should sort of expect maybe, say, Saquon or Josh Jacobs get a deal done before July 17th and sort of reset the running back market. Maybe that happens and helps. Maybe it doesn't, and Dalvin just has to ultimately make the decision himself. So I would say just closer to training camp, maybe July 25th.
Did you just choose July 17th out of thin air, or is there a deadline? going
No,
on there?
the deadline, the July 17th one is the deadline for the guys that are franchise tagged to do a long-term deal. So Saquon and Josh Jacobs have until July 17th. So my thought is if they do a long-term deal, at least Dalvin will have a better understanding. Because right now all these running backs are looking around at each other, whether it's Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, or
Kareem Hunt. He's out there too.
Kareem Hunt. Yeah, they're all looking at each other like, what are we worth? Because everybody's telling us we're not worth much. So when do we find out what we're worth? And it's going to take somebody, and right now, July 17th being maybe the next marker, to do a deal to give anybody any sense of what these running backs are currently valued at.
Fair to say it's more likely Saquon does that before July 17th than Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, the Josh Jacobs one feels a little sideways right now. I don't sense. I mean, I haven't really sensed that was ever going to even happen since Josh McDaniels became the head coach. So I would say Saquon, to me, seems like the guy Joe Shane wants him there. They seem to be getting to a place where at least there's a good offer on the table. So, we'll see what happens with Saquon, but I would say, that's the most likely.
Well, let's just linger on Josh Jacobs a little bit, Jeff Darlington, because when you said that, since McDaniels got there, things felt a little bit weird. And if I'm not mistaken, the preseason last year, you don't read too much in the preseason, but last year when the preseason hit and Jacobs wasn't really significantly used, the sense was it wasn't because they were saving him up like everybody does with their star running back. It was that they just didn't think much of him, and the reason why we thought that maybe is because they didn't pick up a 50-year option earlier in the spring, and then Josh Jacobs becomes the leading rusher of the National Football League, and the prove-it deal, he's saying, I proved it, and the prove-it deal hasn't hit the table. Is that a fair reading of everything that of that?
That's exactly my assessment of it. And so that's where I'm saying, like, at least with Saquon, when things have kind of felt a little weird, it's because any negotiation can get a little funky. With Josh Jacobs, you've got all these, chips on his shoulder now. He wasn't, like you said, he didn't have the option picked up. Then he goes and has a career year. So to me, I think that they've got a bigger, gap to fix here before July 17th. And again, maybe, if Saquon gets his deal done in the day before, 2 days before, which is when these generally get done, then maybe the Raiders and Josh Jacobs do a very similar deal. That could happen. But last year there were 4 players at this deadline that also were trying to get their deal done, and none of them did. So while we like to have hope this time of year that someone will get a long-term deal done, it's not an absolute.
Well, I mean, and then while we're lingering in the is this a fair assessment world, Jeff, the McDaniels tree, we all know, hails from the Belichick tree, and they don't pay running backs that. I mean, they have running backs by committee. I mean, and then they'll find the next, Lawrence Maroney and the next Ramondre Stevenson and get a year or two out of them, and that's why I'm kind of holding my breath to see if Dalvin Cook doesn't you hear Cook to the Patriots maybe, but and we'll talk about DeAndre Hopkins in a second. I just don't know how the Jacobs thing works out. And then does he hold out if he doesn't get this deal? Like, that's the ultimate question, is who actually pushes the pedal to the metal with whatever they have in their toolbox. Jeff?
Yeah, same with Saquon too, right? Like July 18th, if neither of these guys get their deal done, where are we headed? Because Josh Jacobs, I think, has said himself, like, this isn't just about my deal, it's about future running backs. Like, we're doing this for, the position. So if that's true, and all of a sudden this becomes one of these principal things, which can go away pretty quick,
it can.
are we suddenly talking about a Le'Veon Bell situation?
$10 million is a lot of money.
Well, I think we all agree on that. So July 18th, if they don't get their deals done, Saquon and Josh, which one of those guys is going to sit there and say, I'm not playing? I tend to think they'll play. I just don't think from a business perspective it's prudent. But principle can be a powerful thing sometimes.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every...
All right, so that's where we are as far as the running backs being signed. And right now, there's not even rumors of anybody that are interested in Zeke Elliott. Is it possible that Zeke Elliott doesn't get a team? It might just be. All right, good people, we're going to be hitting the road. We got a job we got to go take care of. We're rebuilding the kitchen and putting down laminate floor and everything else. As always, we appreciate you guys, and I will see you soon.